Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a time where truth isn't hidden because it's dangerous, it's hidden because it's powerful. And tonight, I want to speak with you about a truth so ordinary, yet so profoundly designed, that we've buried it beneath layers of shame, wrapped it in controversy, and sold it to the highest bidder. I want to speak with you about something most people won't dare to mention, the hidden truth of the female nipple. We are living in a world that has forgotten the sacredness of creation. A world that covers what God Himself designed and labels it indecent. Not because it truly is, but because our hearts have grown blind. So let's begin here, with what many dare not speak of the female nipple. Not as an object, not as a scandal, not as a point of controversy, but as a part of God's intentional, divine design. Somewhere along the way, we've confused purity with prudishness. We've blurred the line between protecting what's sacred and burying what was never meant to be hidden. The female nipple is not a mistake. It is not an oversight. It was formed by the same hands that painted the skies with stars. The same hands that shaped the oceans and carved the mountains from dust. It is a part of the body uniquely designed to give life. To nurture life. To bond mother and child in one of the most sacred and irreplaceable connections known to humanity. It is where comfort begins. It is where hunger is first satisfied. It is the first place where human love, dependence, and survival are experienced. How did we come to see something so essential, so powerful, so intimately tied to the miracle of life, as something shameful? The shame doesn't come from the design, the shame comes from the distortion. It comes from the way the world has twisted what is holy into something to be sold. Something to be scandalized. We've taken something beautiful and buried it under judgment, under discomfort. We've taught women to hide what God never condemned. And in doing so, we've separated them from their own bodies. We've made them believe that the very part of their anatomy created to nourish their children should be concealed. That something so natural, so necessary, should somehow be a source of embarrassment. But let me ask you, when did that happen? When did a mother feeding her child become controversial? When did we decide that some bodies, in some places, for some purposes, were acceptable to be seen, while others were not? Why is it that a body is celebrated when it's exposed to sell something, yet shamed when it's exposed to serve life? The uncomfortable truth is this: we don't live in a modest culture, we live in a confused one. We are not protecting virtue, we are burying it beneath man-made discomfort and misplaced guilt. I do not speak these words to provoke. I speak them because we've lost our sense of holy vision. We've lived so long in distortion that we've forgotten what purity looks like. The female nipple, like every part of the human body, is not dirty. It is not something to be feared. It is part of a temple. And temples are not to be desecrated, they are to be honored. We should be teaching our sons to see with reverence. To see with respect. We should be teaching our daughters to live without shame. To know that their bodies are not objects to apologize for, but vessels of purpose and beauty. The body is not the problem. The problem is the way we've trained our eyes to lust and our hearts to judge. We have created a culture where we've told women, your body is a distraction, when in reality, it's our perception that's broken. We've trained the mind to lust, and then we've blamed the body for the chaos we've created within ourselves. And here's the deepest contradiction. The same culture that demands modesty will celebrate exposure the moment there's money to be made. A woman breastfeeding her child in public is told to hide, yet that same woman's image is displayed 10 feet tall on a billboard, used to sell jeans, cars, perfume. Do you see the hypocrisy? This isn't about modesty, it's about control, it's about profit. We've hidden sacred things until they could be exploited for gain. And in that transaction, we've lost reverence. We've silenced the natural while promoting the artificial. We've shamed mothers in grocery stores while celebrating models in magazines, not because one is more right than the other, but because we've let money decide what is acceptable. We've taught our daughters to feel embarrassed by what they were meant to embrace. And we've left our sons confused, surrounded by a world that overexposes but underteaches. This is not God's order. This is not truth. Truth does not bend to the marketplace. Truth doesn't dress itself up for attention. Truth simply is. And the truth is this: the female nipple is not dirty. It is not scandalous. It is not dangerous. It is part of the sacred design of life. The problem isn't with what we see. The problem is with how we've learned to see it. Until we clean the lens of our vision, until we realign our hearts with God's original design, we will continue to miss what has been in front of us all along. We need to return to reverence, not fear, not shame, but reverence. We need to stop punishing women for the weakness of others. We need to raise a new generation that knows there is nothing shameful about the human body. We need to tear down the veil of cultural hypocrisy and walk boldly in the truth that sets people free. Free to see themselves as God does. Free to live without shame. Free to embrace their bodies as beautifully and purposefully made. There are truths in this life that have been buried, not because they are dangerous, but because they are powerful, and the longer they stay buried, the more distorted they become. Tonight, I am speaking of one such truth, a truth about the female body, and specifically the part that society has turned into a battlefield of shame, scandal, and silence: the female nipple. This is not about rebellion. This is not about shock. This is about restoration. It's about seeing what was always meant to be seen, not as a scandal, but as sacred. It's about remembering that what God made, He called good, and we would be wise to call it the same. As we just uncovered, what God created was never meant to be buried beneath fear or used as a tool for vanity. This truth must lead us to look deeper, because the female body, in all its beauty, was crafted with divine intention. Every detail, every curve, every function, including the breast and the nipple, was made with purpose, with care, and with a sacred love that perhaps we've forgotten how to honor. The female nipple was never designed to be shameful. It was designed to give life, to feed, to nurture, to comfort, and yet, somehow, somewhere along the way, we've taken this powerful symbol of nourishment and transformed it into a symbol of shame. But this didn't happen overnight. No, it was a slow drift, a cultural step by step, generation by generation, one subtle message at a time, one whispered lie at a time. And now here we are, standing in a world where a mother can be shamed for feeding her baby in public, while across the street, a glowing billboard proudly displays a half-naked model selling beer or lingerie. We declare one inappropriate and the other art. We shame what is natural and celebrate what is manufactured. That's not modesty, my friends, that's hypocrisy. We've been taught to fear exposure, not because the body is wrong, but because our hearts have drifted far from the truth. And rather than correcting the eyes that have been trained to see sin where there is none, we cover the body and pretend we've solved something. But covering truth doesn't make it disappear. It deepens the misunderstanding. And that misunderstanding becomes a cycle: shame passed to daughters, objectification learned by sons, confusion passed from one generation to the next. And in the middle of this confusion, the world found a way to profit from the very thing it pretends to condemn. Make no mistake, society has sold the female body, sculpted it, photoshopped it, packaged it, and advertised it, not to honor women, but to manipulate desire. What was once sacred has now been made strategic. They hide what is real. They promote what is edited. They censor a mother, but they sell a model. And when the sacred is commercialized, people stop seeing it for what it truly is. They stop seeing the beauty. They stop seeing the dignity. All they see are dollar signs. The world doesn't simply hide the truth. It sells a counterfeit version of it. And then it trains us to look at the body either with lust or with judgment, but rarely, if ever, with reverence. It teaches us to whisper when we should be teaching. It teaches us to criticize when we should be honoring. The result: a culture that both idolizes and shames the same body. Is it any wonder that we are confused? Is it any wonder that our sons and daughters grow up unsure of what to believe, what to embrace, and what to fear? But the truth remains, unchanged by trends, unmoved by markets. The female nipple is not a scandal. It is a part of God's intentional design, full of dignity, full of meaning. We don't need more censorship. We need more clarity. We don't need to hide what is good. We need to see it rightly. When we do, shame loses its grip, exploitation loses its power, and what was hidden in confusion can finally stand in the light of truth. There are moments in history when we must stop, look around, and ask, how did we get here? How did we reach a place where something so beautifully created, something formed with divine purpose, became so thoroughly misunderstood, misrepresented, and misused? I'm speaking about the female body, specifically the female nipple. I'm not speaking to provoke. I'm not speaking to scandalize, I'm speaking to bring into the light what has been buried beneath layers of silence, shame, and confusion for too long. The female nipple was not an afterthought in creation, it was not a mistake, it was not a part God hoped no one would notice. It was part of a holy design. It nourishes life. It bonds mother to child. It expresses one of the most sacred, intimate acts of love, feeding, sustaining, comforting. What kind of world do we live in where such a thing is treated with shame, where something so essential to life is seen as indecent? The body does not need correction, our perception does. Yet in this culture, we've created a strange contradiction. A mother feeding her child in public is told to cover herself, to be discreet, to hide, as though she's done something wrong. But just 10 feet away, a storefront window displays nearly the same image, stylized, sexualized, wrapped in branding. One image is selfless, one is commercial, one is necessary, the other is manufactured. And somehow, we've trained ourselves to celebrate the artificial and condemn the real. That's not wisdom, that's not morality, that's confusion, that's fear, that's hypocrisy. We've turned the female nipple into a marketing tool. It grabs attention. It pushes products. It exploits beauty for profit. It's been carved into advertisements, splashed across social media, transformed from a symbol of life into a symbol of lust. We no longer honor the body, we commodify it. We don't protect women, we profit from them. And the most tragic part, many don't even see it happening. We've bought into a false image of womanhood and forgotten the sacred dignity of the real thing. But here's where we often overcorrect. In response to exploitation, we impose silence. We hide. We label all exposure as inappropriate. We cry out for modesty, and we should. But too often we confuse modesty with shame. There's a difference. Modesty is about choice, about dignity, about self-respect. Shame is about fear. Shame disconnects us from our own bodies. One empowers, the other enslaves. We've told girls to cover up, but we've rarely explained why. We've told them their bodies are dangerous, but we've failed to show them their beauty. We've told them to be modest, but we've never shown them that their worth was never tied to how much they covered. Modesty without understanding becomes repression. Shame disguised as virtue does more harm than good. So let's speak plainly. Let's say what is true. The female nipple is not obscene. It is not inappropriate. It is not a symbol of shame. It is part of the story of life. If we cannot look at it without scandal, the problem is not with the design, it is with the eyes that have been trained by distortion. Let's retrain those eyes. Let's teach the next generation to see with honor, not hunger, to see with reverence, not ridicule. That is where freedom begins, that is where healing begins, that is where truth begins. There are truths society does not fight because they are false. It fights them because they are too powerful. Tonight, I'm speaking of one of those truths. A truth about the female body, not just in form but in meaning, a truth about the female nipple. A subject avoided in polite conversation but central to one of the most natural, sacred expressions of human life. This is not a message of rebellion, this is not a call to indecency, this is a message of restoration. The body was not made by accident, the Creator did not sculpt human beings with shame in mind. Every detail, from the head to the toes, and yes, including the breast and the nipple, was formed with purpose. The female nipple is not a flaw to be hidden, it is a feature of function, of beauty, of nourishment, of the sacred. And it's time we remember that. As we've just seen, what God made with purpose was never meant to be buried in fear or covered in silence. It was designed to be seen, honored, and rightly understood. The female nipple connects a mother to her child in a way that no machine, no invention, no substitute can replicate. It is a place of sacred provision, yet while heaven sees it with honor, earth too often sees it with confusion, discomfort, or disgrace. The truth is, we don't hide what is indecent. We hide what we don't understand. And sadly, our culture has lost its understanding. Today, we live in painful contradiction. A woman can be told to leave a restaurant for breastfeeding her baby, while just above the checkout line hangs a lingerie ad, bold, glowing, and proudly displayed. One image is real, selfless, and life-giving. The other is carefully edited, stylized, and sold. Yet we've been trained to accept the marketed image and reject the meaningful one. That's not virtue. That's a society that has grown more comfortable with fantasy than with truth. We call it modesty. But so often what we defend is simply fear, dressed up as decency. And fear cannot lead us to freedom. It gets worse when we begin to see how the female body, especially the nipple, has been turned into a product. What God designed with holy purpose, the world has twisted into a performance. The nipple has been stripped of its function and turned into a frame, a tool in ads, filtered across screens, manipulated for attention, controlled for profit. We celebrate women being seen, but only when it serves the market. When it doesn't, they are told to hide. And in that double standard, the truth is buried. We praise exposure when it sells, we punish the natural when it nourishes, we call it empowerment, but too often, it is still exploitation. In response, we teach modesty, and modesty is good. But modesty is not the same as shame. One is born from self-worth, the other is born from fear. We tell girls to cover up, but we don't tell them why they are worthy of respect in the first place. We tell them to be quiet, but we never teach them to be confident. We give them silence where they need understanding. We teach them that what is natural is somehow wrong. But the body is not wrong, it is the gaze that must change. The way we've trained our eyes to judge, to lust, to look with ridicule, that's what must be transformed. This is why we don't need less conversation. We need better conversation. We need righteous education, not scandal-driven noise, but truth-driven teaching. We need to teach people, especially the young, to see the human body with reverence, not ridicule. Not every part of the body needs to be displayed, but every part deserves to be understood. If we refuse to speak about these things with clarity, love, and honesty, the culture will continue to speak about them with distortion, greed, and confusion. Silence is not purity. Silence is neglect. We were never meant to be afraid of the body. We were meant to see it rightly. We were meant to honor it as a temple. We were meant to teach others to do the same. The nipple is not the problem the way we've twisted its meaning, that is. But the truth remains. What God has made good cannot be permanently buried. And when we begin to speak with wisdom, when we teach with compassion, when we look through holy eyes, shame will begin to lose its grip. And truth will rise again. Some truths have been buried so deeply beneath the layers of noise, fear, and cultural distortion that when we finally speak them aloud, people are unsure whether to feel offended or healed. Tonight, I speak one of those truths. It is simple, but it carries deep weight. It's about the female body, not as a vulgarity, not as a controversy, but as it is in truth. More specifically, it's about the female nipple, a part of the body created not by accident, not for performance, but for purpose. For too long, this truth has been suffocated in shame. But we are not here to bow to shame, we are here to lift up what was wrongly laid low. From the very beginning, God formed the human body with wisdom. Every curve, every line, every function, every part, none of it was a mistake. The female nipple is not obscene. It is sacred. It is the first place where life is nourished. It is where a newborn child finds warmth, comfort, and connection. It is the first altar of provision for every human life. That alone should make us pause and question everything we've been taught about how to see it. Not as something shameful, but as something profoundly holy. But the world we live in doesn't see through God's eyes. It's a world that punishes mothers for feeding their babies in public, but celebrates near-naked images in magazines and storefront windows. We accept exposure when it sells, we condemn exposure when it serves. We praise the bodies that perform, we shame the bodies that provide. That is not virtue. That is confusion. That is hypocrisy. We've taught ourselves to be uncomfortable with what is natural. We've trained ourselves to be entertained by what is distorted. And while the world twists the image, it also sells it. The female form has been broken down, packaged, sold, and manipulated. The nipple becomes a selling point, but never a sacred point. Women are taught to offer their image, but to hide their truth. The marketplace profits from their beauty, but has no reverence for their purpose. This is not liberation, this is exploitation. Wearing a glamorous disguise, and in response, we try to swing to the other extreme. We cry out for modesty, and we should. But we often misunderstand modesty. Modesty is not hiding, modesty is not shame. Modesty is knowing your worth, modesty is walking with dignity, modesty is the power to choose. Shame says you are wrong simply for existing. And sadly, many girls have grown up believing their bodies are dangerous, not because they've done anything wrong, but because society has trained them to be afraid of being seen. That's not modesty. That's spiritual damage. What we need is not more silence, but better teaching, not censorship, but clarity, not fear-based rules, but truth-based understanding. Our children need to grow up knowing the body is not something to be ashamed of, but something to be honored. That includes every part. Not every part must be revealed, but every part must be respected. And if we do not speak this truth, the world will continue to speak lies. Silence does not protect purity, silence weakens it. True freedom doesn't come from hiding what God made. It comes from seeing it rightly. Censorship without understanding breeds rebellion, but truth brings peace. When we teach people to see their bodies, and the bodies of others, as sacred, we begin to dismantle the systems of shame, lust, and confusion. The female nipple is not dirty. It is not a scandal. It is part of a beautiful, powerful design. When we recover that vision, we will stop living in fear, and we will begin to walk in freedom. Truth will always do what shame never can. It sets us free. My friend, the truth is not dirty. It is not obscene. It is sacred. Let us not be afraid of the body, let us be afraid of the lies we believed about it. And let us not fight with anger, but with understanding, with compassion, with truth. Let the truth no longer be hidden, let it be known, let it be honored. And let it set us free.